Hi everyone, it's Ava here, and welcome back to Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. We have officially moved our entire lives to the Forgotten Valley in the last episode, which was the intro to this project, and we're officially starting gameplay today. We have 6 chapters to go, all 1 year each, and we are at the very beginning of that journey. So if you guys are ready, I'm going to bring it over to post-commentary Ava, and I'm just gonna let the muscle memory of the beginning of this game just take me over. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna see me do is show you the calendar, because you're gonna immediately notice that this game is very different from other farming sims, even of the modern era. And one of the ways A Wonderful Life stands out is through the way time is measured. Seasons are only 10 days in this game, meaning that a year is only 40 days. There's no days of the week. There are festivals, but they're done a little strangely in this one. You'll see what I mean later. And notably, on the 3rd and 8th of each month, a traveling merchant will come to town. But every NPC in this game has varying schedules, weather is a lot more fluid, and the way you use your days is going to look very different than even a game like Stardew Valley if you're more familiar with a more contemporary farming sim. So, let's get into what that looks like for your very first day. The first thing I try to do is go outside, only to be stopped by a tutorial. That is another good thing about this version of the game. If I don't explain something well enough, you can always refer to Takakura's notes for the tutorial explanations of this game. They're not all accurate, but a lot of them are going to start appearing. I'll scroll through them so you can pause and read them if you want, but I'm gonna try to explain all of it to the best of my ability, and based on the knowledge I have of what is advantageous to do in this game. So here we go. Once I'm outside, I grab my achievements from the box, then run to the field furthest from my house in order to plant the tomato seeds I have in my bag. By tilling the soil with my hoe, planting the 5 tomato seeds in a row, and then watering them with my watering can. This field is one of medium fertility, so it's a good idea to grow crops in this field. You need to water crops twice a day in this game to ensure they grow within their appropriate season, and most seeds can only be grown in certain seasons or even in certain soil conditions, but for now that won't matter a whole ton. We've just got default seeds to work with and they're not too picky. We also start with an apple seed, which we will also plant, but we're gonna plant it in the field closest to my house instead because it's less fertile soil, and that doesn't really matter for our trees. I'm gonna plant it in a particular spot that will guarantee we can plant a whole bunch more trees in this field as we acquire more. You need 8 squares of room around all of the trees you plant, but that doesn't necessarily all have to be field land. You can plant your trees on the edges too. So with the tree planted, we're now going to go into the barn and take care of our cow, Babybel. Upon entering the field a little bit earlier, we saw more tutorial. Now, in the original game, the pasture had grass for your animals to feed on by default. This is not the case in this game. There's a tiny bit to start, but you'll need to use fertilizer on the grass in order to grow it to be cut for fodder or eaten directly by your animals. The good news is that fertilizer is a lot less expensive in this game, and the grass growth actually spreads on its own too, so you don't need to use fertilizer on every single individual square of this massive field in order for it all to grow. So we'll be getting started with that before taking care of the cow. We have 3 things of fertilizer to plant to start, so I'll be planting them in a couple random areas on my field. So in terms of ranching, the name of the game is boosting friendship with your animals. You can talk to your cows twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. You can cuddle them once a day. Later on, we'll be able to brush and wash them, which you can also do once a day for a friendship boost. And most importantly, you can milk your cows twice a day in this game, once in the morning and once in the evening. It takes about 9 hours for your cows to get their milk back in a day, so it helps to get it early in the day so you can grab the second batch early. Cows are one of those mechanics that's received the biggest changes from the original versions of the game, mainly because, in the original, cows would eventually stop giving milk. They'd only give milk for about an in-game year, and only after pregnancy, and then you would have to get them pregnant in order for them to give you milk again. So breeding your cows was extremely important in the original game, and it was a horrible pain in the ass, I'll just say it. Thankfully now, cows give milk all the time. They don't stop as long as they're healthy, so you can get milk from them until the end of the game. You don't have to get them pregnant. There are still many advantages to breeding your cows though, and I'll cover what they are when we get into breeding. Animals also don't get sick and die in this game either, so a lot of the micromanaging of the ranching aspect of this game has been taken out, which I think is a good thing overall. So because the weather is so nice, I'm gonna ring the bell outside of the barn to let my cow out to graze today, but we need to remember to bring her back in tonight in case the weather is bad overnight. But right now, we don't have a ton going on the farm, so I'm just gonna walk around and pick up some herbs to snack on as we go through things. I'm also gonna go back in the house before we go out into town to show you guys the rest of the house's facilities. The book by the bed is where you save the game, browse the encyclopedia, look at your photos, stuff like that. I forgot in this moment that the meters I was looking for are actually in the menu you access by pressing triangle. This is how you see your inventory, which is much smaller than it was in the original, and there are no bag upgrades. So managing your storage is actually pretty important in this version. If you press R1, you can see your request list, which we'll cover in a bit. Press R1 again and you see your farm and player info. On this menu, you'll see 3 bars: stamina, energy, and fullness. Stamina is obviously the strength you have to work with your tools and such, and you definitely don't want to run out of this. Energy is the easiest bar to keep high because you fill it every time you sleep. So basically just don't pull all-nighters and go to bed at a decent time every night, and you'll always have high enough energy to get everything else done. And fullness determines how hungry your character is. It's basically mandatory that you regularly eat food in this game because you'll get stopped pretty frequently by your gurgling tummy, and you'll be unable to do most of your farm work if you don't regularly eat something. So try to keep that meter full with food to the best of your ability. It's a little hard in the beginning, so I tend to just snack on herbs around the farm and valley before I'm making and eating regularly cooked dishes. Press R1 again to see the breakdown of all your animals both in the coop and the barn. This is just a way to see your animals at a glance. And finally, the last tab is our relationships with everyone on the valley. Pretty basic stuff here. We do also have a tiny kitchen in our house I wanted to point out. The food you can make here is based on categories, and the categories we can make are based on our cooking experience. Right now, we are not a very experienced chef, so all we can make are soups and salads. The more we cook, the more categories of food we can make, so I'll keep you guys updated with that as we start cooking. Finally, in our house, we have a dresser and mirror that we can use to change our outfits or appearance whenever we want. Very fun. There's also a record player that lets us cycle through our songs that play when you are on the farm, and we'll be getting more records as well soon. There's also a TV that is basically useless. You can check a few different channels on here, but it doesn't really give you any info unique or useful to the TV, so I almost never use this. So with that, I think we're ready to go out into the valley and start getting to know people. Before we start socializing, we do have to check this board outside of the inn. This is a feature new to the remake. It's a request board that updates on the 1st and 6th of every month with new requests. You can get specific rewards for completing them, and I'm going to try to get all of them done throughout this game, but we're certainly going to see if I have the foresight to do that. When you pick up a request, it'll go right into the menu you access with triangle, so our current requests are for a milky soup to go to Gordy, and a fully grown tomato to go to Cecilia. If the board calls for a recipe you don't know yet, it will get added to your repertoire. And usually you have until the end of the season to get your request done, so it does pay to hoard things and plan ahead for these requests. Anyway, back to the valley. I highly suggest you try to befriend everyone in the valley, and it helps to do it within your first year for reasons I'll explain at a later time. If you're wondering how we're going to do that, well, we'll mainly be giving gifts, and we have some options. We have this milk for my cow, and we can see if we can give this milk to a few people around town and see if they like it. But also, there is an abundance of natural resources we can grab too. A lot of people in this game are quite easy to befriend. Most of them like products from the farm or flowers you can find in the wild. Every season produces different flowers in different places, so as we start giving our milk to a few select people, we'll also be giving all the herbs and flowers we can in order to give more gifts. So I'm gonna start the day by heading to Vesta's farm where you can buy crop and tree seeds and fertilizer. We will also give gifts to the people there. First, we find Matthew, Vesta's little bro, who is kind of a pain in the ass to befriend, but he is a marriage candidate, so it's well worth it to give him one of our milks. First impressions are important after all. Vesta and Cecilia both like flowers, some of which you can find right near the farm, and Cecilia is also a marriage candidate, so it's very important for us to start befriending her too. My goal is to get each marriage candidate to 10 hearts by the end of the first year, which is the overall deadline for marriage. You need to propose to one of the candidates by the end of your first year in order to move on. I know, kinda strange to see a Story of Seasons game with a hard cutoff if you don't do what the game wants you to. But yes, I actually already know who I'm marrying in the save file. I don't want to spoil anything yet though. I'll get into the reasons and advantages behind each spouse at some other point. This game also allows you to give multiple gifts to people as long as they are from a different category of item, and of course as long as the character will take it. So if Matthew also liked things from the dig site, for example, I could give him something from there too, alongside giving him an item from the farm. Speaking of the dig site, that is located up on the hill where Vesta's farm is, and we'll be going there shortly. For now, I am just trying to buy a few seeds to really get the farm started. We have until 5 p.m. to dig anyway, so we'll be able to come back to that later. As I walk back to the farm, I'll be on the lookout for anyone we can give gifts to. You can look up specific gift guides for this game to learn what specific people like. A lot of gift giving that I'm doing is just based on the knowledge I've held for years over what all the characters like. Hugh and his dad Sully both like milk, his wife Chris likes flowers, the twins who make fireworks like flowers, almost everyone in the villa likes flowers. A lot of people will take flowers, they really are your key to friendship. Back on the farm, I till a bunch of squares, plant my new seeds in the midday, water immediately, and then I make my way to the spring up north. This is something I usually do every day right after my chores are done in this game. It's going to the Harvest Goddess Spring, eating the weird mushroom on the ground, and seeing the harvest sprites. On most days of the year, if you come and talk to the sprites, they will give you a new recipe that you can cook in your kitchen. I'm going to try to get all the recipes and make all of them, but we'll see if I find success with that because there are a lot. But yes, don't forget your free recipe from the sprites every day, otherwise it's gonna be much harder for you to learn all of them. There is one other item we can get in here though. If you talk to this random pot in the back of the sprite's tree, it won't say much, it's just a pot with a mystery liquid in it. And I don't know how anyone could have figured this out when it was originally introduced, but if you speak to this pot 100 times, like just spam the X button on it, eventually you will get special text from it. And receive a record called Another Valley Together. This is the easiest of all the records to acquire besides the ones you start the game with, so I suggest grabbing it early because it's right there and it's kind of fun. Fun fact, this interaction was added to the game in Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life Special Edition, which is the supremely shitty PS2 port I played when I was young. And this method was how you could choose the gender of your child when that was a feature in Special Edition. In the original game, you could only have a son, but if you spammed this pot enough, you could choose your child's gender in Special Edition. But in this game, it just gets you a record. We're gonna leave the tree, having picked up everything in the area, and then cross the little water bridge the remake added to head right into the dig site. This is where you can find artifacts that make good gifts and pretty okay money. I tend to visit this dig site every day I possibly can, and I hoard most of what I find here. And I suggest you do the same, at least in the very beginning of the game, because it's tiny and easy to go through. All you do is dig at the squares and hope you get something. You can see little bits of items in the ground as you dig them up, and if you play this game enough, you can usually predict what item is in the ground by the little sprite. However much you have to dig for it is random, but yeah, digging is very basic, and with one exception, you get to keep every item you find. Now, I don't know when we will find the one exception to that rule, but we'll definitely know it when we see it. So I passed the time digging, getting a couple things, including 2 rare items that'll sell very well later. I am gonna try to hoard at least one of each item in my storage, just in case we need it at some point, but duplicates are good to sell or give away. On my way back into town, I encounter my very first heart event with Rock. Now, I'm gonna try to flash up on screen some sort of bio about all the marriage candidates as we encounter their first heart events, just to give you guys a good idea as to who they are, gifts they like, any quirks about them, and a little bit about their child. Don't worry too much about what the child stuff means, it'll become relevant much further down the road unless you already understand it. Rock, I will say, is not my favorite of the bachelors available, but we're going to be nice to him regardless. At this point in the day, I've done nearly everything I wanted to get done in a single day. With the exception of fishing, which we obviously don't have access to yet, we've forged, farmed, gotten our recipe, given gifts, and stopped by the dig site. At this point, I just started giving gifts to anyone I could find while running around town. And around 4 or 5 p.m., the cow is ready to milk again. Our crops are ready to be watered again. And we're concluding our first day in town. There is still a lot to explain about the mechanics of this game, but now you know the basic schedule of how a day works in A Wonderful Life. Notice that we're not selling anything on our farm yet via the shipping bin. There is a specific reason for this, and we'll get to it eventually, but for now just note that the shipping bin is not always as ubiquitous and important in this game as it is in other games. You basically never want to sell your crops, and you generally want to hoard your animal products, because if you remember, a traveling merchant will be coming to town on the 3rd, so we're going to be collecting stuff to give to him instead of just shipping it outright. At least for now, that's the plan. Well, now that we've gone through a whole day and you have a better idea as to how this game works, I am going to end the episode here. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life, and I will go ahead and see you all in my next one. Bye for now.